faith in administration and be able to work with an administration to move forward. Once you lose that trust, that's it. It's done. So you'll constantly be battling about the numbers and the dollars associated with it. If somebody comes down and gives you an estimate,
right,
you're not going to have that trust, and it goes back and forth. And that was one of the things as a city administrator that I tried to key in on, is that when I had a conversation with the city councilor, I gave him the information that was accurate. If I didn't know the information, I wouldn't provide it. Because from my standpoint, is my word is everything. So if I lose that, then we won't have that working relationship, when you need that trust to move the city forward. And it goes to transparency, and accountability, because you need to have it. But it's like you said, it's more than a catchphrase. It actually there needs to be transparency and real accountability associated.
Well, people
with
need to actually hold people to it. That's the problem. I think once that word gets thrown around, eventually there's always these new political catchphrases that go around. So as of late, that's the one that everyone throws around, but very few adhere to. But before I move on with some other things, because I mentioned it briefly before, and I wanted to get back to it before, because I've had some people who repeatedly want to know stuff about this, I'm sure. But again, with the trust issue and the transparency issue and all that, what is it you know or can share, or what's your opinion on the whole thing with the 22 windows situation? Yeah. That's been one of those subjects that's been out there, and the problem now to extend it is when the current mayor, Sam Sutter, has been asked about this, and he starts talking about, well, with how it's being handled legally, it's another thing that's just being dragged out. So what's your stance, opinion, knowledge?
My take is that people were untruthful about this situation, and it comes back to accountability.
Yeah.
They don't want to accept accountability. I've said my side of it. My side's been consistent, and it's been the honest truth.
Well, I mean, could you...
Yeah, and I'll rehash it. I pulled into City Hall one morning and saw scaffolding on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
So we had an Amoresco project going in where they were going to start redoing the HVAC systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was pretty early, so I called up Ken Pacheco, and I said, Amoresco's here already? And he said, no. I said, well, we got scaffolding on the roof. I said, and it's hanging down. I said, I just want to make sure that it's Amoresco, and it's actually tied because it was hanging over the parking lot, so it didn't fall off.
Right.
And I know we had some structural issues with the roofing and whatnot. So we were in the middle. It was probably April, because we were in the middle of a budget season. So I went up to the conference room, and I had the finance team in there, and then we broke for lunch. And as I was walking downstairs to the treasurer's office, we were outside the purchasing agent in the treasurer's office. Myself, Ed Capone, who was the financial consultant at the time, Matt Thomas, who was tax title attorney, John Nunes. We were talking, and Ken Pacheco came out of the stairway there, and he said, I found out what the scaffolding's for. The mayor's replacing one window in the law office. Now, when Mayor Correa took office, he actually did some renovations in City Hall,
mm-hmm.
and the only way to get the sheetrock up was through that window, because they were going to lift it through a boom, as opposed to walking it all the way up the stairs. So they took out that glass window and just put plywood. Now, Attorney Torres was there the entire time for the 3 years or so with a window that had plywood. So all of a sudden, we've got a new corporation counsel.
Anybody tag it? Just
no.
No Shawn Cadime graffiti tag.
We probably should have, but there was a new corporation counsel,
yeah.
And I guess somewhere along the line, somebody wanted a new window replaced.
Yeah.
So at that point, as an administrator, Ken Pacheco understands the procurement laws. He procures probably more services and goods than any other department head. So there's no need for me to go through and talk about Chapter 30B or Mass General Law, Chapter 149. It'd be like me telling you how to start this program. Make sure you do your intro. Make sure you play a commercial. You know that.
Yeah.
You've done it.
Yep.
My concern was who the vendor was, and that was Mo Raposa. Now, Mo was the top person for back taxes, and we were making a significant push trying to get him to pay his back taxes. So my concern was when the payment was made that the check was actually withheld because it was going to Global Glass. Mass General Law does not allow me to take that check because it was Global Glass. If the check was written to Mo Raposa, I could have took that and actually applied it to his back taxes. But because it was made out to his business, I needed Mo Raposa to actually come in and sign off so I could apply it to the taxes. So my concern was to make sure we never released that check. So I told John Nunes, Ed Capone, Matt Thomas, who at the time was handling all the tax title stuff, to make sure that we did not release any check to Mo Raposa. Now, at that time, I was only told it was one window.
At that time, did anybody know about the whole tax situation that you know of?
Oh, absolutely.
So everybody knew.
There was conversations. I mean, the man went to go do the mural over on Rodman Street and
which is
Columbia
still there,
Street.
I believe.
Right.
The Rodman one.
Right. That mural was done on Mo Raposa's property. When I found out they were going out to do that, I actually had a meeting with him and said he was absolutely out of his mind to go and do a mural on Mo Raposa's property, who owes back taxes. It doesn't make any sense. How do you do a mural on somebody's property that owes over, like close to $1 million in back taxes, and it's been owed since the early '90s?
Yeah.
He didn't want to hear it. So, anyways, at the end of the day, Ken Pacheco knew that he needed to withhold that check. And Matt Thomas was going to work on it because we were working with Mo Raposa's attorney at the time, Dan McDonald. So that was my concern. I didn't think anything of it. Went back up to doing the financial stuff. Ken Pacheco came back up to me and said we were going to do all these other windows. So I assumed he's following the process, Chapter 30B, working with the purchasing agent. Don't really follow up on it, and left it at that. Fast forward to a couple of months ago, I get a call from the police department and say, "Hey, do you know anything about windows?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I know about the windows. He goes, "Oh, that's funny because nobody else in City Hall seems to know about it." I said, "Well, that's ironic."
That is a detail right there.
I said, "That's ironic because Matt Thomas at Capone." I said, and matter of fact, it was during I was having budget hearings.
Yeah.
We were putting the budget together. I had department heads walking in and out of the mayor's office.
Isolate that clip.
And there was a huge window that was taken out. I mean, it was like a wind tunnel coming in and out. I mean, everybody knew the windows.
You can't have so many windows replaced without noticing.
Right.
So
my issue. And I sat down with the investigators and I had the conversations with them. And that's when I was told the check was never issued or released. I never really followed up with it because as an administrator, when I tell a department head to do something, that there's no need for me to follow up.
Yeah.
You put your faith in them that they're going to do their job, they're going to do what they need to do. So, I just assumed that everything was taken care of and handled. So when it was brought to my attention and I'm hearing that Ken Pacheco doesn't know anything about it, that Matt Thomas doesn't know anything about it, that Ed Capone doesn't remember anything about it, the mayor doesn't know anything about it, everybody's putting their arms in the air, and by the way, let's point and say it was the city administrator who is no longer here and in a different community. Well, that's fine and good, but that's not really the truth.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit telling. That's why I jokingly say isolate that clip, but because if you're asked by the police, and what do you know, and you give an answer, and the response is that's funny because no one else seems to know anything. I mean, that's. I don't want to get too much into this part of it right now because this will tie into a bunch of other conversations, but that gets into the whole fact of just what are people willing to say. There's been other cases out that float around the same time frame where the police have noted that some people were saying more than others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't want to get into too much of that right now because it's a whole different topic that has nothing to do with this, but maybe at a later date. I don't know. But
and at the end of the day, this whole Windows thing,
yeah,
they're just going to get a slap in the wrist. They're going to talk about having to change
that's part of the problem. So now what you're going to do is aggravate me because that's the issue.
The AG is going to come down and do that. They're going to say, okay, you've got a purchasing policy that needs to be followed.
Somebody is responsible, no matter who it is. Like, because there's going to be different people out there with an opinion, but somebody is. This should be a big issue. It should be.
But there's the policy in place to make sure that things are being followed. I mean. The sign off. So it gets initiated by the department head. Then it goes to the purchasing agent to get filled out. Then it gets reviewed by the treasurer. Then it gets reviewed by the auditor to make sure that there's funds associated with it. Then it goes back to the department head to get the signature. Then it goes to the mayor to get signed off. So for people to say they knew nothing about this, I mean, you've got all this going on, and to say that, okay, nobody knows, and oh, by the way, we've got 22 windows on a building that's over a highway, and everybody clearly sees this. And then you go, and then all of a sudden now there's an article a couple of weeks later about a department head talking about windows.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was one of my favorites. I did. That's not one of my best ones. I was aggravated at that. I'm not gonna lie. I went there and I brought that up, but that's history. That exactly. How are you gonna say you knew nothing, but then I know one of the favorite things, man. I know nothing. I see nothing. I say nothing. That was actually a lot more than I thought would come up on that subject. So thank you for that.